I always basically just say that it's not going to stop you from trying to do what you want to do. You just need to be a little bit more prepared, which then helps with other parts of being an athlete because you need to be prepared for certain things. So yeah, just not let it stop. You are the same as your friends, but you just need to have that little extra something in your rucksack or 5 minutes to prepare. It's a lot of work now, but it was so much more work even 10, 15 years ago. But yeah, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of your mind is taken up by diabetes. I always wonder, like, what would my mind be like, or how clear would it be if I didn't have to think of these?
Today's guest is a professional golfer whose story blends sporting ambition, resilience, and life with type 1 diabetes. Hannah McCook grew up in the Scottish Highlands, where she developed a passion for golf that led her to represent Scotland internationally and eventually turn professional. Alongside the pressures of elite competition, she's also navigated the daily demands of type 1 diabetes. In this episode, we'll explore her journey into golf, her experiences managing diabetes on and off the course, and the lessons she's learned along the way. So Hannah, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks, David. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Well, I'm very happy to have you here. So, let's jump right in.
Absolutely.
Hannah. So you grew up in the Scottish Highlands, right? Surrounded by sport. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first picked up a golf club and fell in love with the game?
Yeah, I mean, it was, what year would it have been? 99, 2000, so, 25 years ago, basically. I actually was living in Aberdeen at the time, that start of that summer, and then, so played a couple of holes on a short par 3 course with my mum and my brother, and my dad just came for the walk. He doesn't play at all. But then we moved to the Highlands, where my parents were building a house in a field across the road from a 9-hole golf course. So myself and my brother just did laps and laps and laps, and that was it. We just kept going, and here we are, 25 years later, still playing. Yeah.
So, but you went quite a bit further than that, right? So at what point did you decide to pursue golf professionally, and what did that journey look like?
A lot happened between those early days and turning professional. So I turned professional end of 2018 season. I graduated from university in 2015 and thought about turning professional then, but wasn't quite ready. So waited a couple of years, turned professional at end of 2018, and have played professional golf since. But yeah, there's a lot of obstacles along the way of, to make it that far, in terms of playing for your country and playing individually and all these things along the way that I'm sure we'll talk about at times today. But yeah, it was a bit of an honour to actually turn professional when that's your dream when you're a bit younger.
Yeah. So how old were you when you turned professional?
I was 25, which is quite, late compared to some people. Now, there is a few of us that turn professional a little bit older, but more so now girls are kind of, leaving school or coming out of college pretty much full-time professional athletes. So they're, 21, 22 years old. So yeah, I was a little bit older in general terms of the average, but yeah, that doesn't matter. In golf, you can be any age really, so.
But you were already quite successful in amateur golfing before, right? So was this transition from, let's say, elite amateur to pro more mental or physical for you?
I would say it's a little bit of both. In terms of when I did turn professional, the Scottish national coach, he texts me to say the golf ball doesn't know whether I'm amateur or professional. So in a mental way, it should be exactly the same, which I kept trying to think of because it's right. Golf ball doesn't know, your golf clubs don't know. It's just what you're doing. But physically it was different because I was traveling further. I was on the road a lot more. My professional career started straight away in South Africa, really. But I was fortunate. I travelled a lot as an amateur, but I was kind of always at home, an event away and I was home. Whereas professional was like, okay, we're 4 weeks on the road. Here we go. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so you've represented Scotland internationally as well, and you've competed at this high level. What have been the highlights of your career so far?
There's a few. I was very lucky to represent Scotland for quite a few years. I mean, I travelled as an amateur. I played golf in every continent bar Antarctica. So I was pretty lucky with that. But I would say highlights. One of them could even just be turning professional, because if you've got that dream to do it and you manage to do it, quite an achievement. Also, you know, as an amateur, my final season, we play a home international, so it's Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales. We won that, the Scotland ladies team. It was the first time we'd won it in 10 years. So winning something as a team in an individual sport is even more special. So, you know, I would say that, or the one individual professional win I've had. So there's been a few that have been fun, but I think winning as a team was probably the highlight.
Wow. Yeah, so that team experience is very, very important to you.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing other team sports when I was younger, but then decided to do an individual sport. So when I get the chance to be in a team, I would jump at it and break someone's hand off to do it. So yeah, no, I loved that one.
What are some of the other sports you tried before golf, or maybe even when you were still an amateur?
I've skied since I was 18 months old. I'm very lucky to have that opportunity, so I love doing that. At one point, I wanted to be a skier, but that just wasn't practical in terms of financial and weather here. So, I played tennis, I played football, basketball at school. I've always had a bike. I could go out on a bike. We've got hills here to go hill walk. There's so many opportunities where I live that I've been very lucky to try
Yeah.
a lot.
So you've always been an active child. When you were a child, you were very active, right?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't find me sitting around for long. I would be doing something. Yeah.
So some of our listeners may not be familiar with the specifics of golf training. How do you prepare for competition on and off the course? What does your training look like?
That's a tough one in a way of like, we all do stuff that's different as well. That's the fun thing about golf, that people do the same things, but everyone does different things and everyone gets different results from that. Because some people don't necessarily need to practice much, but it works out. And other girls practice loads and it doesn't work out. So, but in general terms, you know, depends on the time of the year. But say the middle of the summer and we're competing all the time. If I'm home for a day or so, you know, I might be little bit more relaxed in terms of might be a gym session and a little practice. But then you've got to split the practice into, am I hitting golf balls, am I doing short game, or am I doing putting? In the summer, it would depend on maybe what wasn't so great last week in a tournament. And if you know the course of where you're going, it's like, right, do I need to hit? Is the golf course really tight, so the trees are quite close? Do I need to practice shots that are like that? Or is it wide open like a field and I can just hit it wherever I want? So there's lots of things to think about when the practice comes in. But then there's obviously the gym work and the mental work and all that other variables and things that can happen too. So it's quite full on. Imagine you're trying to train for your triathlon and you're picking the right, which am I going to go for a run, bike or swim? It's like, oh, am I going to hit balls, chip or putt? Kind of similar.
Yeah. Yeah, but you mentioned gym work. So most people would maybe not immediately associate golf with gym work and other types of hard training, but I know you do train incredibly hard. How has strength and fitness changed your game as a pro?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in recent years. I mean, since Tiger Woods, he's basically been like, oh, I go to the gym, so then everyone started, and now it is a massive part of the game of golf. But it's a case of, you know, you want to be strong, but you want to be fast, and use power through your legs because you use the ground to develop ground reaction forces to hit the ball further. So hit the ball further, obviously the golf course feels shorter. So yeah, there's lots of stuff that goes on in mobility wise to make sure you can swing the golf club as fast as you possibly can as well, but within control, and do it for, you know, we do tournaments 3 days, but guys are doing 4 days and doing it for 20 weeks a year. So yeah, there's a lot just to maintain. Like I might do more gym work kind of pre-season and try and keep it going during the summer, but you know, it's just a case of, right, have I done the work now? It should hold on till get me through the end of the season.
Yeah. Wow. Hannah, I think it's very impressive that you're competing at that level as a golfer, but I find it even more admirable knowing that you're living with type 1 diabetes. So maybe let's dive into that a little bit and let's maybe go back to, where it all started. When were you diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and what do you remember about that time?
I remember everything as if it was yesterday, but it was February 2002. So it was 23 years ago. I just vividly remember a couple of days before just being so thirsty. My brother would have a cup of tea and he wouldn't finish it, and I would just finish it. Just anything that was there, I would drink it. I don't specifically remember, you know, the whole going to the toilet loads because of that, or not generally feeling unwell, but I just remember being super thirsty And then the Sunday evening, I just didn't feel great at all, and I was sick, pretty much every hour that night. And my mum phoned the doctor the Monday morning and said, Hannah's not right, can you come and see her? And they'd said, well, we're too busy, so you need to come and see us. So we drove 5 miles to the doctor's, and I was probably sick again, in the car as you are. Instantly did a urine sample, and obviously ketone showed up straight away. It just went red. I guess I didn't know what it was, but she just looked at my mum and said, it's diabetes. So then I was put in an ambulance and taken 30 miles up the road to the hospital in Inverness, and then that was it. Suddenly life has changed for myself and my parents and my brother. So yeah, I remember it so well, actually. I don't know, there's bits of me I'm like, do I remember it because I've talked about it so much in ways, or I do physically remember it because it was so, I guess, traumatic for anyone that goes through that.
So did you have good support systems at that point? Maybe, I don't know, family, medical team that helped you adapt to that?
Yeah, my parents were amazing. My brother is 2 years older than me, so I was 8, so he was 10, so he was just kind of navigating the middle of school. So we tried to leave him as best he could to get on with what he was up to. But my parents were amazing. My mum stayed in hospital with me for 4 or 5 days till we were, we knew what we were doing, to release us into the wild, I guess. And my dad was still working, but he worked in Inverness, so he would pop in once he finished work, and then he would come home and make sure my brother was okay before he took him to school the next day. So yeah, my mum didn't like injections, didn't like needles, but had to adapt quickly to help me to do mine. So yeah, it was a bit of a learning curve for everyone. But I guess it's made us all probably a lot closer and a lot stronger as a family.
So you were already quite an active child at that point. What was your idea about sports and diabetes back then? Or maybe what did your parents say about that? Were they encouraging you, or were you like, maybe I should tone it down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, my instant thought, I guess, when I was taken to hospital was like, well, this isn't good. This is not great. Something's going on here. And I instantly said, like, I'm not obviously going to be able to do anything. It was February, so it was middle, ski season was going on. I was like, oh, I can't ski at the weekend then if I'm in hospital. But, my parent, I kind of then went quiet for maybe 2 days and didn't really say a word, because I think all this thought as an 8-year-old went through your head, like, what the heck's this? So I think my parents, one night used Google, which I guess was in its early days, and asked if, other diabetic athletes, and Sir Steve Redgrave popped up. So they came into hospital the next morning and told me about him. And I'd watched the Olympics in 2000. That was probably my first, memories of the Olympics, really. And I'd seen him win his 5th gold in Sydney, and I said, oh, if he can do it, he's my twin, basically. So then I never really, apparently didn't stop after that. The next weekend, I was back skiing. I was doing stuff at PE at school. It just obviously was a bit of a learning curve and getting used to it. But from that moment, I was not stopping.
So it was a real inspiration to you to see an athlete compete with type 2 diabetes he had, right?
Yeah.
Compete at the Olympics even.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you see anyone do anything that you've got as a kid, I guess it's an inspiration. You're like, well, if he can do it, why can't I do it? So
I'm fully aware that type 1 diabetes, that's another layer of difficulty, I would say, to your life, especially as an athlete. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit about how you manage. Like, a round of golf can last hours with long rounds, pressure, lots of walking. How do you manage your blood sugars on a typical competition day?
It's when we talk about a typical competition day, every day can be totally different. When it comes to a tournament day for anyone that doesn't have diabetes, we play at a different time, we eat at a different time, the weather's different, we're feeling different, there's different pressure on each day. So there's all these other variables before you even add in the layer of what my blood glucose do. So it's a case of, if I can try and start the day as best I can, it obviously, yourself, it gets you off to a better start. But I am very fortunate that I have Omnipod 5 and Dexcom. So I generally wake up in the morning with perfect blood glucose from during the night, which gets me off to a better start. Whereas, previously I was, I'm a bit high to start with, or a little low to start with. But then I'll just, it depends where I am. Last week I was in Spain, the breakfast wasn't so inspiring, so it was a kind of guesstimate of what the carbs were I was eating. And then I'll just regularly check my Dexcom to see where I'm at and eat according to what that says and how I feel. There's no set, right, I'm going to have to eat this at this time. Without sounding like I don't plan, I do wing it just a little bit at times, because, I mean, you've kind of got to. Um, it's like in golf, we say take one shot at a time, or I take 10 minutes at a time when it comes to blood glucose, because like, okay, I'm going up, right, I'll take some insulin, I'm going down, I'll eat something. Or if I feel hungry, I'll do it. But it's a case of I keep looking at Dexcom every few holes and just see where I am and what I'm up to.
Yeah, so you have to be flexible and take it as it comes, right? In a way, as long as the basics are okay, like you have a hybrid closed loop system, then you basically see what the day brings, and then if action is needed, you will take action, and you will
pretty much
adjust.
Yeah, it's a case of just right, what's going on now? What I'm about to do? Where am I? What action do I need to take? Yeah. And if there's no action, then great, brilliant, move on. Yeah.
So you feel pretty confident about your diabetes right now?
I go through phases. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind. So when I'm in a tournament, I run a little bit higher during the tournament round, just because I can perform better there than I can below 5 or 6 even. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I just need to make sure I've got something else in the tank here. But then I get annoyed with that when I'm at home when I run a bit higher, because I want to be better when I'm at home. So I'm happy with the way I am when I'm competing just now. Other times I'm like, oh, I could be way better. It could be way better. But then again, my lifestyle when I'm at home isn't exactly, sitting at a desk 9 to 5. As a lot of people, it's I'm doing this or I'm doing that, or I'm practicing or I'm coaching now or I'm driving. It's all these things, as you know, are just constantly like, what's going to happen in the next hour?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I was thinking, do you see diabetes? It's maybe not your main concern when you're competing, or are you able to just focus on the game, on how you're performing, what you have to do at that point, let's say, for golf? Or do you still find that you have to, diabetes has to be top of mind often?
I would say that it can take a bit of a back seat at times. It can, I look at obviously Dexcom, but there's times I'm like, oh, I've not looked at that in a couple of holes. I wonder what it is. Until I'm maybe starting to feel like I'm dropping a bit. And I was like, oh, I need to look at this. And you see a down arrow and you're like, oh, here we go. But yeah, no, I would say I do focus more on the golf than the diabetes part. Unless there's something about to happen, which then sometimes, takes the mind off what's happening on the golf course. So it kind of has pros and cons in that. Because you don't want to be constantly thinking about what shot I'm about to hit, but at the same time, I don't want to constantly think about what my blood glucose is doing. So, yeah.
No, I would say I have the same experience. I mean, I think maybe 10 years ago, if I was doing anything like active, diabetes would be top of mind. But now with all the new tech and also just more knowledge about diabetes, I think I can start a day, and if my sugars are right at the start of the day and there's competition coming up, I can just say, okay, I think I'll be fine with my current management. It will be fine. Something odd may happen, something, you may get stressed or something. And your glucose may go up or down. But in general, I can be confident, I think. Do you have that same idea right now?
Yeah, no, I would say so. Especially when it's, like you're going to race and I'm going to play golf. It's something we do quite regularly. So you kind of get into the habit of that. I definitely do, if I'm out, because I'm not running or cycling as much as I sometimes am in the summer. Like, not that I do it all the time, but it's like, oh, I'm going for a bike ride. And then I'm like, oh, what do I need to do again? Because I've not done it for 2 months. And I'll be low within 10 minutes of being on the bike because I'm not prepared well enough. So it does come back to the top of your head. But when it is something I do so regularly, it's like, you just become a bit complacent with it, I guess, because you're like, oh yeah, I know what to do here. I've done this before.
Yeah. The power of habit and experience, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing for all people with type 1, even if they're just walking or just biking now and then. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it and the more confident you will feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the more that you do it and become accustomed to what it is, it's definitely a bit easier. But then it doesn't make it, things can happen. It's not like, people say to me like, oh, you've done this for so long, you must be fine now. And I'm like, yeah, I wish, there's however many variables a day can affect it. So, things can happen.
Yeah, diabetes can throw a curveball at you sometimes. Have you had any difficult moments on the course where diabetes directly influenced your performance or impacted your performance? And
Yeah.
how did you handle that?
I mean, there was one specifically I remember maybe 2 years ago, or was it last year? I was playing well. I was in France playing a tournament. It was the last, so the third round. I was thinking I was sitting around somewhere around top 10 area, maybe ninth or 10th. And then with 4 holes to play, I was like, oh, I need sugar. No, this is going to be a disaster. And it was a disaster. I then played really badly for the last 4 holes and fell down to maybe 35th or 36th in the tournament, and lost quite a significant amount of order of merit points, lost a significant amount of euros, and just was then annoyed and upset that I'd done that. And then I didn't want people to think I was upset because I'd played bad for 5 holes. I didn't want to make people think I was using diabetes and it was an excuse. There was all these thoughts in my head, like, I don't want to tell people that's what it was, but then I want to tell people that's what it was because I don't want just to think I looked rubbish for 5 holes. So then I did tell people, but said, oh, I'm not using it as an excuse because I don't want that either. So yeah, it was more frustration after it, I think, than in the moment. Because in the moment, I just ate jelly babies and hoped for the best. But after, I was just kind of disappointed that had actually impacted me so much, because that was the first time in a long time that it had done so much to me.
Yeah, even as a pro athlete, and you have, say, pretty good control of your diabetes, it can sometimes go wrong. Some things can happen that are unexpected, and that can really impact your performance. And I can imagine it can be very frustrating, especially if you are in general in good control and you're used to having control over your diabetes. For myself, this is something I notice sometimes. I feel I'm in control, but the moment things go out of control, I can get really, really angry sometimes at my diabetes and think, come on, I did everything right.
Literally. And that is the frustrating part of it. You can do everything right and it just doesn't necessarily work. And it's the same as, doing professional sport. And I'm just going to relate it back to golf. You can do everything right in preparation, but something happens or the wind gusts or you hit a tree. There's so much variables to both things. I think that's just like trying to tie them both together is it's a bit ridiculous, really. So
I find also that maybe, if it's about lows in general, they make me a little bit depressed. So I will also start doom thinking a little bit more. You'll get concerned and worked up in your head in a way, and you'll make it worse than it is, because basically, yes, as you say, you can take jelly babies, and you should know that after, let's say 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, you will be fine. I mean, your sugar will go up again and you will manage, but I can get so worked up about it. Also, I think because it impacts your brain, right? Being low, it works in your brain, and it impacts your thinking about the race, about everything.
Yeah, I mean, they say you shouldn't drive below 5 blood glucose, so we're trying to do professional sport below that, and it shows that there's not the clarity of thinking. So, it shows that, well, I'm not above 5, so I should stand here and wait. But then you don't want to. I don't want to get in anyone else's way. We're doing an individual sport, so I don't want to put them off. So I just kind of keep going, and it is what it is. Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, the ranking doesn't care about diabetes, right?
No, nobody else. Nobody cares really. And they do in the way personal level, but it's like, oh, tournament, Hannah's had 5 bad holes. Great, I've beaten her. Who cares? It was diabetes that did it. I've still done it. Yeah.
So, golf tournaments also, as you mentioned, require a lot of travel, often with, I guess, irregular schedules. So what does that mean for your diabetes? How'd you deal with that, the travel part?
Again, it's definitely, so much easier now than it was 10, 15 years ago. I remember the first time I went to America. I was still in school, actually, and I had to kind of, I had long-acting insulin, short-acting. I had to work out, right, if I'm going to a time zone, it was like, I think it was 6 hours. I was going to Texas. I was like 6 hours behind. Do I do this one at this time, or do I do what? And then you just got to figure it out. Now I get on a plane and I land, and my Omnipod beeps at me and tells me the time zone, and I just change it, and away you go. It's the basal rate's away, and you're fine. And you don't think about it anywhere near as much as what I did 10 years ago. So we're very lucky on that front. But then it's just obviously different food and different restaurants, and you don't know if you're necessarily going to like the food before you eat the food, so you don't pre-bolus, and you don't know what the gram carbohydrate content is because nobody tells you, and you can't translate to find out, and these are all the obstacles, but they're things that I guess, again, I've just kind of got used to without even getting used to it, and just wing it a little bit, and try not to panic if I don't know or what's going on, but I've always got jelly babies or orange juice or something with me that worst case scenario, I'll be fine.
I mean, yeah, being prepared is I think the most important thing, especially in these situations where you can't control all the variables, right? If you're eating out in general, it's more difficult than if you're just eating at home and you know what is in your food, especially if you're abroad and on a different schedule and different food types. It can get challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thankfully, when you're at home, you're like, oh, there's a packet of pasta. It's one portion. I can tell you what that is. But yeah, as soon as you're away, and it's like, what the heck is this? But yeah, just make it up and sort it out and figure it out in a couple hours if it's not right.
Indeed. And golf is also, I would say, a sport of patience and focus. How has living with type 1 influenced your mental game?
I think this is where golf and diabetes are so similar in terms of you need patience. You need to think about where you are now rather than, trying to be like, yeah, like get ahead of yourself on the golf course. And yeah, you want to get ahead of yourself in a way in diabetes of being like, right, what am I doing? And planning for that. But at the same time, you don't want to be like, oh, what if it doesn't come down, and getting annoyed at it? You just got to let it happen. So they're both so similar, and it's quite funny because I do kind of laugh about that. You try and be a perfectionist at one thing and then try to do two things that are very similar is basically impossible. I just try and make the golf as good as I can, and if the diabetes is good at the same time, then that's a bonus. Or do I get diabetes perfect and then the golf's good at the same time? These are the, is it chicken and the egg situation? You go around in circle going, right, what do I make good today? And then see if the other thing falls into place. But I've played well with high blood glucose and I've played well with perfect blood glucose. So there's none of it makes sense either. It's just, again, as you said, being prepared and seeing what comes up.
Yeah, so would you say there's like an aspect of randomness in both of them, both in golf and in diabetes?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as we've said, you can wake up with perfect blood glucose, but you could then do something or do nothing and it changes and you're chasing after it all day. We can go warm up on the golf course at the driving range and hit it perfectly and get on the golf course and hit it really bad for the first couple of holes, and it's like, whoa, what's going on here? But you've got to deal with that quickly and get over it and get on with it. And again, then stick to where you are. And the key thing of always, we always used to laugh at it and it's like, stick to the process. But for both of them, it's like, right, I'm going to do this and hit this shot and go to the next hole. And I'm going to look at my blood glucose, I'm going to eat this and I'm going to go to the next hole. There's same principles in both.
Yeah, it can be frustrating though, I can imagine, to do that. And we touched upon this before, but how do you feel about being seen as a diabetic athlete versus simply as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's who I am. It's not like we can't change it, unfortunately, in terms of we've got this now until a cure is found. I don't mind it. I do like the thought that, it shows that I'm resilient and I wouldn't give up with certain things, because that's what we all are like. None of us who have lived for diabetes for this long have given up. So I guess it shows that part of what I believe in. And again, if I'm a diabetic athlete and someone else then becomes diabetic and sees that, then great. I want to help as many young people, or not even young people, anyone that gets diagnosed, that can see that we can still, perform to a high level and, do what we want to do and do professional sport or elite sport. It doesn't need to be professional, but it's not a barrier at all. It's just, again, as we've said, being more prepared and doing all these things with it. But yeah, I don't mind having that title. I quite like it in a way of like, well, if I got rid of diabetes, I'd just be, who's Hannah the golfer? It's not Hannah the diabetic golfer. So yeah.
Yeah, so it does define you a little bit.
Yeah.
It's part of your identity in a way.
Yeah, 100%. It's part of, any one of us who's got diabetes like yourself. It's like, oh, here's David, the type 1 athlete, triathlete. Here he goes. He's got pods stuck on him and Dexcoms or whatever all over him. So it's not like a tattoo, but it is. Here it is. Here he comes. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a positive way to look at it.
Yeah.
Um, but you've implied this, that you've also mentioned this before during a previous conversation we had, that you didn't want to be the one who holds up the group. You just want to be one of the girls.
Yeah.
Um, where did you think that feeling comes from?
I just think, you don't want to get in people's way. You don't want to, I was at school and Hannah needs to just wait a minute and then can come. She's late to PE because she needs something to eat. And I never wanted to hold people back or get in their way. So it's probably just a case of that's in a way what I've always had to do at times, but nobody was ever bothered by it, only me. And then that's just the way I think I've just developed as a human, that I'm like, well, you guys are also competing for, for money, for points, for a job, like, I don't want to stop you guys. I don't want to interfere with what you're doing. And if we're traveling, even if I'm hiring the car for the week, I'm preparing early that I'm not going to have a low blood glucose before we drive, because I don't want to hold other girls up, because we've all got other stuff we want to go and do or relax or practice. So I'm always like, right, okay, I need to be prepared for that, to make sure I can't be like, sorry girls, we're going to have to sit here for 10 minutes. And then be like, oh no, I've annoyed them. Or I just think it's my personality. If I don't want to annoy people and I don't want to get in people's way. So I guess I'm a people pleaser, because yeah.
So you're trying to make your diabetes less noticeable in a way, I would say, for other people?
Less noticeable in terms of interference. Definitely more noticeable. You can see my pump and Dexcom all the time, pretty much. They're both on my arms. All summer it's been on my arm. So noticeable in that terms. Noticeable in jokes of when people are offering around sweets and I'm like, well, I definitely don't need any more sugar right now. And then someone jokes me, oh yeah, offer the diabetic one. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like jokes like that, it's fine, more noticeable. But when it comes to holding people back, I'm like, yeah, I'm hiding this. Nobody needs to be held back because of what I'm having to deal with here.
True. Yes, because, it's also something you have to deal with on your own in a way. Some things you can only do yourself. Yeah, some people, it depends. You can show your diabetes, like you say, you can show your pump, you can show your sensor. People may get interested in what it is and what are they for and how does it work. And that's nice. But yeah, during competition especially, I feel that, yeah, I want to be just an athlete, one of the athletes. Nobody's going to care if I have diabetes or not. There's not a separate ranking for the diabetic athlete.
Exactly.
So
We don't want that either,
hey,
No.
no, we don't want that. We don't want to be judged by different criteria because we have diabetes, right? So yeah, it's a balance in a way to, on the one hand, yes, I don't want to hide my diabetes, but on the other hand, this should not be the only thing that defines me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a case of, you don't want to hide it. My pod's on show or my Dexcom's on show. But as soon as it comes to you're on the course and you're needing some sugar and you don't tell anyone, you just get on with it and hide it away. Like, oh, I just needed some Haribo just because I wanted some Haribo. Not because, if I didn't eat it, we don't know what could happen. I don't want to go really morbid and be like, things could go really wrong. But yeah, you do hide that part of like, I'm just going to get on with this for a couple of minutes and I'll be fine. Whereas all the time on show, it's like, here's my pod. I want to advocate to others you can do it. It's on my social media. It's all over the place that I've got diabetes, but for 5 minutes on the golf course, I'm like secretly like a little squirrel eating some Haribo so nobody knows I've got low blood glucose. Yeah. Which is actually mad because I've never really thought about it like that, but here we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Mm.
Some people see diabetes only as a challenge, but you also see it in a way as a strength.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think I'd be as, resilient or as strong in certain ways if I wasn't diabetic. I think I would have not necessarily given up at times earlier, but I definitely feel that's part of, I'm going to show that I can do this, and I've got diabetes, so it's a double barrel. I'm going to go with that. Yeah, I think it's definitely a strength as well. You hear so many of us and so many people we've spoken to and met, they're like, yeah, I'd love to not have diabetes, but at the same time, it's part of me now, and it probably makes me stronger, so I kind of still want to have it. That is part of us, and it makes us stronger. So, do you want a cure? Yeah, but no at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about this before.
Yeah. And yeah, I talked about this also in other interviews, and I tend to say, if there's a cure, suppose someone finds a cure, I do want it, but you can give it to other people first. I mean,
Right.
other
Give
people
it,
may need it more than I
yeah,
do.
give it
So
to that
please start
4-year-old
ground
who's just
first.
been diagnosed, or give it to the 3-year-old who's just got it, so they don't have to have the trauma for the rest of their life. Give it to someone who's not going to remember they've had it and been cured. Yeah. Or give it to someone who's older that's, not doing so well with it, that might give them a few extra years in their life. These kind of people, rather than like, yeah, no, I've got it, but I'm doing fine just now. So I totally agree with that. Yeah.
No, now you're not the only one living with type 1 diabetes, obviously. And in fact, there's a whole community out there of people living with the condition. Do you feel a connection to other athletes with type 1 diabetes, even outside of golf?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's your family know what you're going through, but they don't know what you're going through. Whereas anyone else that's got diabetes, they fully appreciate the feeling that comes with lows and highs and frustration and all these other things. So as soon as you see someone else that's diabetic, it's like, whoa, here's one of me. Here you are. Let's have a conversation. And you almost like you feel like you know them, but you don't know them at all. And you want to have the deepest conversation, but you don't even know their name.
Yeah.
Which is quite funny. And so then when we meet up as, Omnipod days or Dexcom or whatever, it's amazing to be surrounded by so many people that really get what you go through. And, we might meet each other once a year, if that, but you feel like you've known them forever. Because you can sit and talk about, oh yeah, I did this. And you're like, oh no way, how did you do it? And you fully understand rather than just someone being like, oh, you're low, you need some Haribo. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you've got something in common, right? Something, that is a big part of your life.
Totally.
And yeah, they will understand that too. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast, just to be able to talk to other athletes with type 1 diabetes and because I feel that connection. It's something that you can only feel if you have type 1. Yeah. It's a different set of challenges. It's a different lifestyle. It's a way of looking at life and the world as well. I think it's a mindset, I would say too.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Diabetes is a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work now, but it was so much more work even 10, 15 years ago. But yeah, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of your mind is taken up by diabetes. I always wonder, like, what would my mind be like, or how clear would it be if I didn't have to think of these? How many other thoughts do we have a day? Someone said this once, but I can't remember. Of, by diabetes is taken up. So, yeah, I wonder what it'd be like, but at the same time, that's who we are. So here we are.
Yeah, I read that for a presentation recently that they did some research about the number of decisions, new and additional decisions someone with type 1 diabetes has to take in a day. It adds up to about 180, I think.
180
extra, yes, on top of, the everyday decisions.
Yeah, the top of getting in the car and where am I going? It's where am I going and can I drive? Yeah.
Yes.
What's the blood glucose? Where are they going? What are we up to?
That takes up quite some mental space in that way, I would say. And then if you want to, on top of that, compete as a pro athlete, you really have to be, I would say, even efficient in your thinking in a way. And that makes you probably stronger and more resilient to deal with the challenges in life in general, maybe.
I mean, it's just, as it always goes back to trying to be more prepared, because you've just got to, have I got sugar if I need it? Have I got spare pods? Have I got spare Dexcom? Have I got insulin pens in case it all fails? Have I got a blood glucose meter in case it all fails? Right, okay, I've got that in my rucksack. Right, I can go now. Oh wait, have I got my golf balls? Have I got my bag? Have I got this? Have I got my shoes? Have I got all these other things that you need as a normal person before you're like, oh no, I've got everything. Yeah, okay, good. Right, we're good to go. So yeah, I mean, our bags are probably heavier than everyone else's, or there's more stuff in them, but we're more prepared and more resilient in a lot of things. So I'll take that as a win.
And how important is visibility, representation? So showing that professional athletes can thrive with type 1 diabetes to you personally. You also, show your tech online and show yourself as a type 1 athlete?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't do loads and loads of postings about it because I don't want my whole page to be, oh, here's Hannah with diabetes, here she goes again. But I do. I am more than happy to show it really happy to show it, actually, because if I can have that same, you know, moment for someone else that I had from realizing Sir Steve Redgrave was diabetic, then that would mean so much to me. Like, if I could be someone else's, I could be like their Hannah McCook, because like, oh, she's done it, then that would mean so much that some kids, even if they've not, you know, they don't go on and be a professional athlete, but they don't sit in PE and say, I'm not doing it because I've got diabetes. They can do all these little things, or they can go for a bike ride with their friend after school. They can go and do all these things without thinking it's going to stop them. It's just a case of realizing they can be active or chase whatever they want. So yeah, no, I'm more than happy for people to be seeing that I'm a diabetic athlete.
Yeah, because you said it yourself. It was such an important moment for you to find an Olympic athlete with diabetes. So these role models are really important, especially to young people just in diagnosed and just are at a loss, basically. They don't know what's going to happen to their life. So building on that, what message would you give to a young person with type 1 diabetes who dreams of becoming a professional athlete?
Yeah, I'll always basically just say that it's not going to stop you from trying to do that if that's what you want to do. You just need to be a little bit more prepared, which then helps with other parts of being an athlete, because you need to be prepared for certain things. So yeah, just not let it stop you. You are the same as your friends, but you just need to have that little extra something in your rucksack or 5 minutes to prepare. But you can do it, and if you want to do it, then go for it.
Yeah, that's a great message. I mean, you can do everything you want as long as you're willing to put in the work, because
Yeah.
you have to prepare better probably than other people. You have to learn more about your own body to become more aware of how your body works and how it works in certain situations. But if you're prepared to do that, there's no barrier that can stop you from realizing your dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if everyone around you is as supportive, fortunate as what I had then makes it even easier as well. That you can, you know, not that you don't want to rely on people, but you know that support's there if you need it to keep going.
So Hannah, I really love having this conversation with you. It's great to talk to, a pro athlete with type 1 diabetes. And I would love to continue talking, but before we go, I'd like to end our conversation with a bit of fun. So
Okay.
I have a few quick fire questions for you to
Right.
answer, if you're okay with that.
Yep. Cool.
Okay, here we go. What's your favorite golf course in the world?
It's always been between a couple, but I'm gonna say Castle Stewart, which is at Cabot Highlands, just outside Inverness.
Music or silence during training on the course?
Oh, it depends on what I'm doing. Depends if I'm with others. If I'm on my own, I'd have music, definitely. Just even one earphone.
What type of music would you listen to?
I love all sorts of music, but my favorite is country. So it's pretty. Yeah, I would probably have that. Just not even loud, but just to break the silence of me being on my own if I'm practicing. Or I listen to a podcast as well when I'm walking around. That's just, so yeah, both.
You can listen to this podcast.
Yeah, right.
Peace
I
out.
was thinking that. Yeah.
And what's your go-to low snack during a round?
During a round, I've always got a bag of jelly babies in the bottom of my bag. But I do enjoy just like a carton of apple or orange juice because it's just so easy to consume. So I just down it and away I go. So when I'm at home, I have that all the time. But when I'm away, I obviously don't travel with that in my bag because it's so heavy. But I would go to the supermarket and buy a couple of boxes because it's so easy to eat or drink. Yeah.
High or low? Which do you fear more during competition?
Low, definitely low. Yeah.
What is your favorite training drill or practice routine?
Oh, goodness. I used to love hitting on the driving range for as hard as I could, but now I know and understand how to practice putting. I find it quite satisfying. So I enjoy being on the putting green, actually. Probably. That's a really hard question.
And maybe the opposite side. What's one training drill or practice routine you hate, but you still have to do?
What do I hate? I don't know if I hate any of it. I love the job process of trying to get better, so I don't know if I hate. There's nothing I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's not like I have to go out and do a training session that you have to do, thankfully. So I could just stand in one place and hit balls or chip pucks. So
I understand, yeah.
Yeah, so if it came to gym stuff, and then it's definitely when it's been winter block of hypertrophy and I'm doing 3 sets of 10 back squats at the end of a session, that's horrendous. We'll go with that. That's probably the one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, for me, it's the track sessions, the high, the
High
high tempo
intensity.
track
Yeah,
sessions. Yeah, high intensity.
yeah.
That's I hate them, but you have to do them to
So,
get better.
mhm.
Have you ever used your diabetes as an excuse?
Uh, I mean, not in the golf world, but yeah, I mean, I've definitely used it the odd time. I've been like, "Oh, come and do this," and I'm like, "I'm low," when I'm probably not, but I just don't want to go and do it or help do something
Yeah.
or go and move something. I'm like, "Oh, I need some sugar." So yes, we've all done that to a certain extent, and for some point,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You should, right? Diabetes has a lot of disadvantages, but sometimes you can
Might
also
as well
use
use
it
it.
to get out of
Yeah.
something.
I've used it as well in school to get to the front of the queue for lunch because I said I was low and I needed to eat. So, I'll take a pal with me and we skip the queue. It's great. Yeah. So,
That's a good one.
it's a good one. Yeah.
What's one thing people usually don't realize about having type 1 diabetes?
That you can eat what you want and you can do what you want. I think it's just oh, you can't eat that. Or, oh, can you do that? Can you eat this? Can you do this? Yeah. And then I sometimes get a bit snappy because I'm like, of course I can do it. I just need to take insulin for it or do something. So leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do whatever. Just, I have diabetes doesn't mean I have to be so strict with everything.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bit of prejudice sometimes that you encounter, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's more pressure when it comes to eating things for someone with a nut allergy than it does with us with diabetes. We can eat whatever we want. We just need to take insulin for it or figure that out. Whereas if you've got a nut allergy, then you can't eat whatever you want if it's been prepared in the kitchen with nuts. So I always think, yeah, I'm, in a restaurant wondering what the grams of carbs are, but at least I can eat it. And if it's not right with insulin, it's not right. I'll figure that out in a couple of hours, but I'm not going to be needing an EpiPen and sorting, yeah.
Oh, you're not gonna die.
I'm
No.
not gonna die. No, if I eat two
As
more
long as you have
pasta than I should have done. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, wow, you did great. Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Hannah. How did you experience our conversation today?
No, it was good. Really cool, actually. Yeah, as you said before, and as I said, it's nice to always speak to other people that totally understand what it is and what's going on. So when if I say something, you can relate it to what you do, but you know how that feels.
That's
Rather than being like, oh, right, yeah, you're low. Okay, that must feel awful. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's cool. It's all good.
been there, done that.
Exactly. We've all got the t-shirt for everything that we've done, yeah.
Yeah. So looking ahead, what's next for you in your golfing journey?
I just finished my last tournament of the season last week. Just there at the weekend, so a couple of weeks of figuring it out and see what happens. Yeah, there's a few things up in the air just now, financial wise and things like that. So I just need to sit down and figure it out and see where we go. But one thing is diabetes will still be part of the ride, so we'll figure that one out as well. Yeah.
For sure. Can't switch that off.
Not at all.
unfortunately.
Not at all.
If people want to find you online, where should they go?
I've got Instagram account. I've got Facebook. I mean, it doesn't get updated a whole lot. Twitter, I've not been on Twitter for a while, but yeah, Instagram's probably the main one. And I've got a website as well. And I started a TikTok as everyone else has, but I don't really. I've got like 3 followers, so I wouldn't. There's not much on there. But yeah, Instagram's the one.
And yeah, that brings us to the end of this episode. Hannah, I really liked your honesty about the challenges and your determination to keep pushing forward. I find it a real inspiration. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
for having
knowing me
Yeah.
and for
Thanks,
sharing your story.
No.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Out of Range, the podcast that shares real stories from athletes living and thriving with type 1 diabetes. I hope today's conversation inspired you to get active, take control, and find your own balance in sport and in life. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and follow the show, or share it with someone who might benefit from hearing these stories. Every recommendation helps more people with type 1 diabetes discover the power of movement. And in the meanwhile, keep learning, keep moving, and keep your glucose in range.